I was born and raised in Cambria County, the oldest of three boys, to parents who are still married to each other today, 46 years they've been married. My parents gave us great upbringing. My dad was a middle-income, blue-collar guy. My mother was a stay-at-home mother. We had everything we needed and most things we wanted. Addiction wasn't something that we really talked about because it was something that happened to other people. It didn't happen to families like ours, families who had the opportunities that we had. But eventually addiction took front and center stage for us. We watched for years as my brother Todd spiraled deeper into his addiction. And we knew he was in a bad spot, but we thought he would pull out of this. Unfortunately, he never did. In 2005, Todd died at age 28 of a heroin overdose, left behind a 6-year-old daughter at the time. We were shocked. But when it happened to us again, a second time, the best word I can use to describe our family is dismantled. This time it was my 25-year-old brother, Josh, dying of a heroin overdose. He died on September 14, 2007. His son was born November 14, 2007. So with my brother's deaths, I was the last man standing, so to speak, the last living child of my parents, which made it all the more difficult for me to tell them in 2011 that I was entering inpatient drug treatment for an addiction to prescription pain medication, primarily OxyContin. Though I had abused drugs and alcohol for many, many years, more than 20 years, it was the opioids that drove me into treatment. Obviously, unfortunately, my path has been much different than my brother's. And today I identify as a person in long-term recovery from the disease of addiction, which for me means I've not had a drink or drug, mood or mind-altering substance in 6 years. And the difference between 6 years ago and today for me is night and day, 180 degrees. During those days, my life was full of fear, anxiety, physical sickness, mental sickness, hopelessness. Today, my life is full and full of hope. Today I work for the governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and have been given a great opportunity to share my personal story and have been given a platform to talk about the facts that treatment can work and recovery is possible. And so to know that 6 years ago, oftentimes I believed death was preferable to the life I was living to today, when I have the opportunity to memorialize my brothers and share my story of recovery in a positive way is unbelievable to me on many days. Right now we're focused on saving lives. People who are actively addicted right now, we want to save their lives, get them into recovery. But absolutely, the long-term plan has to be a great focus, or has to include a great focus on prevention. We want to stop people before they get to the point where we have to use naloxone, and we have to talk about how can we create processes whereby we can effectively get people into treatment, and how can we keep them engaged in treatment. If we can shortcut this, we'll be doing ourselves a world of good. And so right now, in the midst of the worst ever overdose death epidemic that this state or nation has ever seen, we are hyper-focused on saving lives, but really the long game here has to be prevention. And really, the evidence shows us that that prevention has to start and be done predominantly through evidence-based programs in the schools, as much a part of the curriculum as social studies or science. Well, we saw more deaths in 2017 than we saw in 16. We saw more deaths in 16 than 15. We continue to see significant increases in the number of deaths in Pennsylvania. I think we will continue to see deaths increase for the foreseeable future. That's not to say that we're not throwing everything at it that we can, but we are likely to get worse before we get better, in my opinion. We need resources, not only financial resources, but we need human resources. You often hear the phrase, it takes a village. There's no question that if we are to begin to turn this tide of rising overdose deaths, we need a village, we need the community, we need need your understanding, we need your empathy, we need your compassion, and we need your support.